They won't kick your door in. They won't announce a ban. They won't tell you no. They'll just make certain things harder to find, harder to justify, harder to own. Because in every collapse, the most dangerous people aren't the loud ones. They're the ones who don't need permission. When systems fail, we imagine chaos, riots, fires, sirens screaming into the night. But that's not how it starts. It starts with calm. Lines form, rules appear, access gets organized, and quietly, very quietly, a list begins to form. Not a list of names, a list of capabilities. Because systems don't fear people. They fear independence. Anything that lets you operate without the grid, without approval, without oversight, that's what ends up on the Prepper Blacklist. And today, I'm going to show you 3 technologies that history proves don't survive long once control tightens. Not because they're weapons, but because they work. Technology number 1. Off-grid power that doesn't ask questions. Power is control. Always has been. Not electricity itself, but who decides when you get it. Large solar farms are celebrated, mass energy projects are subsidized, but small, private, self-contained power, that's where things get complicated. Portable solar generators, home battery systems, micro-hydrogen, and mechanical backups. They're sold as emergency tools. But watch closely. The rules around them keep changing. Licensing, capacity limits, grid tie-in requirements. Because a home that can generate power without reporting usage is a home that doesn't panic when lights go out. And panic is leverage. Systems don't like leverage they can't control. Technology number 2. Private communication. When networks fail, people assume silence. That's wrong. They assume loss of coordination, which is why decentralized communication never stays simple for long. Mesh networks, encrypted radios, peer-to-peer devices that don't rely on towers. They're not illegal, not exactly, but notice how often they're labeled as outdated, unnecessary, potentially dangerous. Because communication without oversight creates groups that think together, and armed thinkers have always been more threatening than armed criminals. Criminals react. Thinkers adapt. That's why centralized platforms are free, and private ones always come with friction. Technology number 3. Untracked value storage. When currency becomes digital, it becomes conditional. You're not holding value, you're accessing it, and access can be revoked. Cash disappears first, then alternatives get regulated. Not banned, just discouraged. Sudden rule changes for your safety, because value you can store privately lets you move quietly, and systems prefer visibility. They don't want you broke, they want you dependent. Here's the part most people miss. These technologies aren't targeted after collapse, they're restricted before, during stability, during normalcy. When people stop paying attention, that's when freedom gets traded for convenience. Not stolen, voluntarily surrendered, because nothing feels dangerous when the lights are still on. Survival isn't about hoarding. It's about optionality, not standing out, not being loud, not being obvious. The most prepared people don't look prepared at all. They blend in, they adapt, they disappear before anyone notices they were never dependent to begin with. Remember this, in every collapse, power doesn't hunt the strongest, it hunts the obvious, and blackout wolves were never obvious.